Hi, this is Tony. I thought I'd give you a quick review of the internal frame that came with the Sinanju from G-Systems. Just a very quick look at the box. It might not come through clear on the camera. In terms of printing, the box kind of seemed to have a inkjet print kind of feel, so somewhat blurry, lower resolution. As you can see, it came with the internal frame pre-assembled, or they call it the gift box that came packaged inside of the main box. And here we actually have the internal frame in its box, and this seems to be laser printed, and I believe they actually sell this as a separate accessory that you could buy for other or previous kits. So I'm going to open this up and actually see what it's like. I've seen from other builds of G-System kits that before they started bringing out this pre-assembled frame, guys really struggled putting that together. The previous frames were also cast in a resin, whereas this is actually a plastic injection kit which they've also assembled. So I'll open this up and see what it's like. Once you get it out of the box, it's enclosed in more layers of plastic. It's got two layers, like an upper layer here, which kind of keeps all of these parts in place. Definitely a high quality commercial product rather than just being a garage kit or anything to that effect. So all really nicely laid out. Here's a quick look of the different pieces. It seems you actually have to do a little bit of assembly. I noticed it came with a bit of a instruction manual here, just showing what these different parts were. So I'll have to figure out why that didn't come fully assembled. So that's okay. Still feels a bit like cheating considering I'm wanting to build this expensive garage kit. But having seen what troubles some of the other guys have gone with the frame, this is quite nice to see. Really good quality. Good weight to it. It's actually been cleaned up already from the looks of it. Yeah, they've actually cleaned it up mostly. Maybe a few little pin marks or things like that, but otherwise looking really good. These little pieces here, these little pistons, those are metal, and the 8 of them there. Yeah, looking really good. So I guess these are for the adjustments. These are little bolts. Relatively loose, so I guess I'll need to tighten that up somehow. Little nut there at the back. Let me just put that down. Hopefully it's in focus. But on the other side doesn't seem to be a screw head, so not quite sure how to tighten those up. Oh, the fingers are articulated too. So this reminds me of the Perfect Grade Gundam, having that digit articulation as well. Relatively loose, so I'm not sure how it will hold a weapon if the fingers are this loose. It doesn't seem like there's a way to to tighten those up, but that should be alright. I'll make a plan. So unlike the Perfect Grade inner frames, which are also articulated, with those they seem to be, when I was building the Perfect Grade, a lot of the joints had little rubbers inside, so you can actually bend a knee or something and it would actually stay in place. I get the impression with this, let me just put the camera down, I get the impression with this that once you've actually decided on what pose you want, that you will need to then fix it. I mean, I can't actually bend this. Well, okay, there it goes. Alright, I'll need to be quite careful with this. But yeah, otherwise pretty cool. I know with the Perfect Grade Gundams you spend months actually assembling that inner frame and painting it. So what my plan is now is to actually do a dry build of this kit and see what I actually need to paint, and also actually see what of the inner frame is actually exposed. I know from other kits you can spend an absolute age assembling, preparing and painting that inner frame, and then at the end of the day you don't actually see any of it, or maybe just 10%. So I'm going to try and figure out what that 10% might be and just focus on painting those. This is the right arm, and it looks pretty good. The fingers will need a bit of cleanup. It might come out on the camera. You can see the joints a bit, or the digits are a bit rough at the top, so I will need to sand those down or file them down. This looks almost identical to a perfect grade hand, so I guess there's definitely maybe a bit of copying going on there. But otherwise it looks pretty cool. I remember assembling the hand from the perfect grade. There was a lot of work. Just the inner frame hand. So this is pretty cool. The elbow joint, it's kind of a double joint. There's no joint in the center, but there's this longer piece here where they've got two different screws rather than just having the forearm connected to the upper arm. So you do get that double movement, or at least you can touch his shoulder, so to speak. I read the manual concerning, or the little instructions about tightening this joint. You actually have to somehow rotate the arm around itself to tighten that up a bit. Looking at that now, I don't really see how that's possible. This is going to be a bit tricky. But there you go. There's also a bit of rotation on the shoulder, obviously, so that you can... Let me just put that down. So you can... that's his arm there. This is a bit difficult. So if his arm is down, you've got that outward movement there. Then obviously got the arm being able to lift up and down. So pretty complete. You should be able to pull off any pose with that. This feels a bit weak. I really do hope I can tighten that, because I know that the resin's pretty heavy, so I don't want that dipping down. So if I can't tighten that at all, maybe I will just replace this bolt and put some sort of threaded screw in there so that I can tighten it as I please. And once I've got him in a pose that I like, I'll just seal that in or tighten that 100%. So the leg is a little disappointing in that it's not actually a double joint on the knee. You can't actually... see that. So this is his thigh, or his upper leg. These two metal bits here seem to just serve a purpose of not letting you overextend the leg, although that keeps popping out over there. So that's there. There is another joint there, just like on the arm, but for whatever reason they've decided that you can't actually pull that back. Let me just pull those off. So if those pins weren't there, I would have a very nice double jointed knee. But with, oh, look at that. These are actually pistons. Now, wow, okay. So this is a spring-loaded piston on that guy there. So that will let me extend it. But for some reason this guy, he doesn't actually extend at all. Let's see the other leg. Okay, so the other one's fine. Okay, well let me demonstrate on that leg. And there you go. Oof, this is quite tight. So here I've got the double joint. So that's quite cool. No ball joints, so he's got that flexing outwards, obviously forwards, and let's see if there's any down here. So the ankle, that is the same as that. Oh, okay, so there you go, taking advantage of those pistons. The foot, let's see, there's a joint here. Oh yeah, that bends a little. That's quite nice. Let's see if there's any other ankle rotation. So yeah, so that's a bit weird then. With this, there's no actual rotation on the ankle. Let me just try bending his other leg forward there. So I was expecting some sort of ball joint or some sort of angular movement on the lower leg, but that just seems to be forwards and backwards. So that's quite strange actually, because I was expecting to, let's say, oh wait, there you go. So I can actually rotate him right down at his ankle so that I can rotate it like that. Okay, so that's just a little bit different, but that'll be fine. A few little dangly bits here. Don't quite know what they're for yet. Hopefully there's nothing wrong with that piston there. So yeah, so very little to do on this. So one obvious massive disadvantage of having this frame fully assembled is that painting would be an absolute nightmare. Now, I know some guys love to, do two tones and paint all the little individual bits, and on a normal perfect grade where you've got, let's say, the legs composed of 50 or 100 parts, you can paint those separately. Whereas obviously if it's a single plastic injection piece, like this piece here is just one massive single piece. If you wanted to paint all of these different colours, you're in for a heap of pain in terms of having to mask all of that off. Fortunately for me, I don't care for much of that detail because it's just going to get covered up. I know people will say I'm lazy, but I think there's more than enough work here to keep me busy. I managed to get that stuck piston out. If you can see there, it's actually a bit rusted. I'm not sure if it's actually the spring as well. All the other ones seems to be fine. So it's just that one guy there. If I can get in focus, there you go. So maybe I'll give that a bit of a light sanding and oil that up, and what I'll probably do is just oil all of the pistons up to make sure that none of the others actually end up rusting or locking up. So yeah, I guess one of the advantages of working with metal. I've cleaned up that piston that was giving me a problem, and it seems to be working fine now. It was quite a lot of work because that little insert there, or the opening, seems actually to be a slightly smaller size than the one on the right, but I can't actually get this out, and this seems to be quite locked in there. And I don't actually know how they managed to seal that, because they must have glued or melted or something, because you can't actually pull this out. So I literally had to sit there with a file. This is the file I used, just a metal file, and had to just file that away. So I filed off all the rust, and then obviously, still trying to stick it in, having that slightly smaller opening. I did need to file the whole thing down a bit just to make it ever so slightly thinner. I then followed that with a lot of sanding just to smooth it up, and eventually had to move over to using Autosol. It's a metal polish with a microfiber cloth, so my fingers are really killing me now. But yeah, so it's working quite well. I actually also found that the spring inside must have been rusted, because whenever I retracted this piston, a bit of dust was coming out, so that obviously means that the spring's rusted. So I ended up spraying some grease onto the actual piston head here, or the piston, and actually just pushed that in and out just to lubricate that up, and that seems to be working quite well now. So I definitely will be greasing up all of these guys, because once that's locked in there, like before, if that's fully locked, you're not going to be able to bend that leg. You would actually have to take it off the pin somehow, so I definitely don't want this locking up when I put all the armour on.